When most people hear the name Samson, they think of two things: long hair and Delilah. But before Delilah ever shows up, there's another wild chapter in Samson's life that almost never gets talked about. It's a story about a secret riddle, dead lion, honey, and 300 foxes with burning torches tied to their tails. Yeah, the Bible goes there. This is the story of Samson's riddle and the burning foxes. To understand what's going on, we need a little background. Samson lived in the time of the Judges, long before Israel had kings. The people kept getting into a cycle. They would forget God, fall into sin, get oppressed by foreign nations, cry out for help, and God would raise up a judge, a kind of rescuer and leader. Samson was one of those judges. Even before he was born, an angel told his parents he would be special. He was to be set apart from birth, no cutting his hair, no drinking alcohol, and he was supposed to stay away from things that made him unclean. This was called being a Nazirite. And God gave Samson something extraordinary: supernatural strength. He was meant to use that strength to begin rescuing Israel from the Philistines, a powerful enemy nation living nearby. But Samson's life is complicated. He's strong, yes. Chosen, yes. But also impulsive, driven by what his eyes see and what his emotions feel. That's where our story begins. One day, Samson goes down to a Philistine town called Timnah. While he's there, he sees a young Philistine woman. We don't know much about her, only that Samson likes what he sees. He comes home and tells his parents, "I've seen a woman in Timnah. Get her for me as my wife." His parents are troubled. They say, "Is there no woman among our own people? Do you have to go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife?" But Samson insists, "She's the right one for me." The Bible adds a little note here. It says Samson's desire for this Philistine woman was going to be used by God as a way to begin confronting the Philistines. Samson doesn't see the whole picture, but God will work through it anyway. So Samson goes back down to Timnah with his parents. On the way, something dramatic happens. Samson is walking alone through the vineyards when suddenly a young lion comes roaring toward him. Most of us would panic. We'd run, scream, freeze. Samson does something different. The Spirit of the Lord comes on him in power, and with his bare hands, he tears the lion apart. As one tears a young goat, the Bible says, no weapon, just raw, supernatural strength. And here's a key detail. He doesn't tell his parents what happened. Later, after some time has passed, Samson returns along the same path. The lion's body is still there, but something unusual has happened. Inside the carcass, a swarm of bees has built a hive. There's honey. Samson, who was supposed to stay away from dead bodies as part of his special vow, reaches in, scoops out some honey, and eats it. Then he gives some to his parents, but still doesn't tell them where it came from. This moment, lion, death, honey sticks in his mind. He's going to use it. Time moves forward. Samson's marriage is arranged. He goes down to Timnah for the wedding feast. In that culture, a wedding feast could last 7 days. There's food, drink, celebration, and Samson is given 30 young Philistine men to be his companions, basically, his groomsmen. To make things interesting, Samson decides to turn his strange lion and honey experience into a riddle. He says to the men, "I'll give you a riddle. If you can explain it to me within the 7 days of the feast, I'll give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. But if you can't solve it, you owe me 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes." They agree. They're confident. "Tell us your riddle," they say. Samson speaks, "Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet." They're stumped. For 3 days, they can't figure it out. They don't know about the lion. They don't know about the honey. This isn't a normal word puzzle. It's based on a secret event only Samson knows. By the 4th day, the men are getting desperate. The clock is ticking. Losing this bet would be expensive and embarrassing. So they go to Samson's new wife. They pressure her. "Coax your husband. Get the answer to the riddle from him, or we will burn you and your father's house with fire. Did you invite us here to rob us?" This is serious. She's terrified. The party atmosphere is gone for her, at least. She goes to Samson and starts to cry. "You hate me," she says. "You don't really love me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer." Samson pushes back. I haven't even told my father or mother. Why should I tell you? But she doesn't stop. Day after day, for the rest of the feast, she weeps and nags him about it. She presses, questions, accuses. Finally, worn down and emotionally exhausted, Samson gives in. He tells her the answer, and she, under pressure from her own people, immediately tells the 30 men. On the 7th day, just before the deadline, the men come to Samson with a smug little smile. They say, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson knows instantly. They've cheated. They've gotten the answer from his wife. He snaps back with a biting line. "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle." In other words, if you hadn't used my wife, you'd never have known. He's furious. Samson has made a promise, though. The bet is still on. He owes them 30 sets of clothes. So what does he do? The Spirit of the Lord comes on him again, and he goes down to another Philistine town. There, he kills 30 men, takes their clothes, and uses those garments to pay off his debt to the men who solved his riddle. Then, still burning with anger, Samson storms back home to his father's house. He's done for now. In Samson's absence, the bride's father assumes Samson hates his daughter. He doesn't think Samson is coming back, so he gives her in marriage to one of Samson's companions, the very best man who stood with him. The tension is building. Samson has been betrayed by his bride, humiliated by the men, and now without knowing it yet his wife has been given to someone else. You can feel this story heading toward an explosion. Time passes. Harvest season arrives. Samson cools down and decides to visit his wife. He brings a young goat as a gift, kind of like showing up with flowers and chocolates in that culture. He goes to his father-in-law's house and says, "I'm going to my wife's room." But her father blocks the door. "I was so sure you thoroughly hated her," the man says, "that I gave her to your companion. But look, her younger sister is more beautiful than she is. Take her instead." It's hard to describe how offensive this would feel. His wife has been handed off to another man, and now he's being casually offered the sister as a replacement. Samson's anger reignites. This time, he says, "I have a right to get even with the Philistines. I'll really harm them." What he does next is one of the most bizarre and vivid scenes in the Bible. Samson goes out and catches 300 foxes, or possibly jackals. The Hebrew word can refer to either. He takes them in pairs, ties their tails together, and fastens a burning torch between each pair of tails. Then, he lets them loose in the fields of the Philistines. The foxes, panicked and wild, run through the standing grain, the stacked sheaves, the vineyards, and the olive groves. Everywhere they go, the fields catch fire. In a short time, Samson's act of revenge wipes out huge portions of the Philistines' food supply and economy. It's chaos. Fire spreading, crops destroyed, smoke in the sky. When the Philistines find out it was Samson, they ask, "Why did he do this?" They're told, "Because his wife was given to his companion." So they respond with their own brutal act. They go and burn Samson's wife and her father to death. The cycle of violence is spinning faster. Samson says, "Since you've acted like this, I won't stop until I get my revenge on you." He attacks them again, slaughtering many, the text says, and then goes down to live in a cave in the rock of Etam. And that's where this part of the story leaves us, on a cliff, in the middle of a complicated, escalating conflict between Samson and the Philistines that will continue in other episodes of his life. So what do we do with a story like this? It's not clean. It's not simple. There are no easy heroes here, but there are some important themes and lessons buried inside the drama. First, Samson's story shows how God can work through flawed people. Samson is chosen by God. The Spirit of the Lord gives him incredible strength. Yet he's impulsive, driven by his eyes and emotions, quick to anger, and often careless about his special calling. And still, God uses him to confront the Philistines and begin freeing Israel from their control. That doesn't mean God approves of everything Samson does. Killing 30 random men for clothes, burning fields, seeking personal revenge, these aren't held up as good examples for us to copy. But it does mean this: God is bigger than our mess. He can weave his purposes even through the broken choices of flawed people. Second, this story is a picture of what happens when pride, betrayal, and revenge start feeding each other. Samson makes a showy bet with a secret riddle. The men cheat by threatening his wife. She betrays his trust. He pays back with blood. Her father gives her away. Samson burns the fields. The Philistines burn his wife and father-in-law. Samson kills more. Back and forth it goes, each act worse than the one before. It's a reminder that revenge doesn't have a natural stopping point. It doesn't settle the score. It escalates it. In our world today, it may not look like burning fields and foxes, but it can look like this. Someone hurts you. You hurt them back just a little more. They respond worse. A family, workplace, a friendship catches fire. Third, Samson's riddle itself is ironic. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. In a way, that riddle is a picture of how God works. Out of something deadly, a lion comes something good and sweet honey. Out of something harsh and violent, Samson's chaotic life, God still brings moments of deliverance for Israel. It's not neat. It's not pretty, but it's real. God can bring sweetness out of what was meant to devour us. He can bring good even out of stories that seem wasted and broken. Finally, Samson's story invites us to ask some personal questions. Where am I letting my anger control my actions? Where am I stuck in a cycle of, they hurt me, so I hurt them back? Where have I treated a gift or calling from God like strength, influence, or talent as something to use for my ego instead of his purposes? Samson is both inspiring and warning. He shows us how powerful a life can be when God's Spirit is at work, and how much damage can be done when that power is driven by our own unchecked emotions. The good news is, you're not stuck repeating his mistakes. You don't need superhuman strength or a dramatic story to matter. God can use your ordinary life, your everyday choices, your small acts of forgiveness, faithfulness, and courage. And unlike Samson, you don't have to learn everything the hard way. You can look at his story, the riddle, the foxes, the fire, and say, I see what happened when anger and pride took over. I want something different. Because the same God who worked in the days of Samson is still able to bring sweetness out of what was meant to destroy, and light out of even the messiest fires we start.